Okay. We'd rather have you there just for a bit to like learn about the scam than like not come at all.
Okay, cool.
We appreciate your interest. I like your shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
No problem.
Can I take this?
Yeah, of course.
Is it like a coincidence that they're across from you?
Who knows?
Who's here first?
It just happens. We were here first.
Okay.
Wait,
I thought it was like they saw you here and they like set up.
Anti-abortion students
which
for
one?
life.
Oh, Students' Life is? Oh, okay. You know, don't you hate that, like, the little name attempt to make it sound legit?
No, literally. And the way that they use the same sort of like slogans and narratives, like the future is anti-abortion. Why
It's
did
like
they
the
say
future
that?
is female. Like, what
Yeah,
does that even
they
mean?
saw that in like a Forever 21 shirt and they're like, that's what we're going with.
So I got 3 problems with this. I would have put gaslight in here as well, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
I thought studies show that birth control, would put hormones in your body, do damage to your cycle and your body long term if you take it for too long.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, like, for example, I'm on birth control. I've been on birth control for quite a bit. It really depends on what works for you. Of course, it is something that you need to have a long conversation with about and consistently be able to talk with your healthcare provider about.
But you did hear that sometimes it can cause some problems for some people. That's why I've always been kind of worried.
There's always different like symptoms for different people, if that's what you mean. Like, for example, some people might go through weight gain with certain like birth control. Some people might have like mood instability. But again, that's not across the board for every abortion method or birth control method.
And how are they getting taxpayer money?
Oh, so that's because they are funded through the Florida Pregnancy Network, I believe is what it's called. So it's basically like part of Florida's like healthcare division, and so they're funded.
But don't you have to be like qualify for certain standards in order to be funded by them? There's no standards?
Florida does kind of create their
pretty
own
low?
standards to be able. Like they basically kind of create their own standards to both. So not like at the same time allow anti-abortion pregnancy centers and then kind of kick out abortion pregnancy centers. So they do that through many different means. Like they have these laws in which they'll do like measurements for the building. So it's like if your hallway isn't a certain like length or width, then you can't perform abortions there. Even though it doesn't like medically have anything to do with it.
I used to be able to go to Planned Parenthood, the one here, so many years ago, but now they locked their door and stuff. Like, that wasn't like that before.
Yeah, I mean, they have to put a lot of safety measures just because there's
shit's gotten effed up over the years, I would assume.
Yeah. No, I mean, people have gotten pretty aggressive. There's regularly protesters there, like, yelling at people and things like that. So it's kind of like, it's to keep...
Yeah. Isn't there some building right next to them that's, like, pro-life?
Yes, that's what... A lot of the anti-abortion pregnancy centers, also known as crisis pregnancy centers, tend to locate themselves right next to, like, actual Planned Parenthoods or abortion
So they must have
centers.
paid a buttload of money to get that little building or something like that.
They just... Their whole point is to deceive and confuse as much as possible and delay your time in
Yeah, I was out there and I actually debated some of them when they're out there doing the little chants and make fun of them.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of a lost cause because they're kind of like in their own head about it. So, but the whole point, like, we just focus on being able to uplift the resources people have and protect like reproductive care as it is and further that wherever possible. But we try not to engage with, you know, like the protesters and anti-abortion, like or pro-lifers, forced birthers, whatever you like to call them, just because it's kind of like they're creating their own narrative and sometimes it's best to just not engage with it.
Can I ask you a question based on your views here?
Sure.
Like, since you're for abortion, and I am too, what about if a man never wanted a child and a woman has a child with his sperm without his consent, do you feel he should be able to walk away?
That is a dense question. I think it depends on the means at which they obtained it.
What if they just didn't really know each other? It was like a one-night stand.
Yeah. At the end of the day, unfortunately, in regards to that, the person could just choose to not have any contact with the child.
That legally, that's not possible right now. But I wish it was.
Yeah. But they because it is that person's body. I do still fundamentally think.
She should have total choice over what she does.
Whether she has a child, but of course the whole custody issue and like contact and things like that is kind of a whole nother.
Yeah, if he doesn't want to do with that, then she should have full rights. I agree.
Yeah.
I just want to know your view on that.
Again, I think it depends on the method in which that occurred. because I don't know that much about like child custody laws, to be honest, or child support laws. I think regardless of
well, they make you pay. Whether
exactly.
Sometimes
Like no matter
even
what.
if you're not the father, they make you pay. So
Yeah. So I just think that's kind of a separate issue in itself. Not really.
So you never really thought about it?
No, I mean, no, not really, particularly because I don't think that it pertains to like reproductive rights in terms that somebody should have the choice to do what they will with their body, and whether they have the choice.
Well, some would call that a reproductive right, to be able to walk away.
Yeah.
Because men don't have a choice right now.
Yeah, I understand that.
I just wanted your view on that.
Okay.
I'm gonna go mess with these guys.
Okay. If I went to like a private,
What's up, man? How you doing?
What's going on? No. This is better than the King song. This is the Sherman Max.
I have the M10-3.
Okay, that's kind of a small one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like really easy to get going to class and stuff. I hit a bump like going downtown.
That would be you.
That's not. This is more. This is 50 miles an hour, 70 miles per charge.
The thing is, like 50 miles an hour, you have to wear all that.
Yeah, I don't really go that fast. The most I've ever gone was like 40, 44.
I fell off of mine. I never wear anything, so I fell off of mine. I want to hang out with her more.
Yeah, you got to wear something. If you go over 15 miles an hour, you should definitely wear something.
Broke my wrist.
Oh yeah, I used to not wear anything, then I fell off.
Off of that?
Not this, but my previous one.
I've seen ones where people actually get it registered. Like they have like.
You can't register it that I know of.
Because I was in Jacksonville. Some guy was on getting abortion. He had like a little. I don't know if it was like.
Jacksonville?
It was like, I don't know if it was a motorcycle plate or like a scooter plate. But he had one.
Maybe it was just for looks. Did it have a certain name on it?
It looked official. It didn't have.
Did it have random numbers and letters, or did it have something that
No, it was
made
like
sense?
random numbers and letters.
Take the first abortion pill before taking the second one at your house. An abortion pill reversal, which is
I have like, I have the app in every entrance.
Yeah. EUC World is what you should be using. Is that what you use?
I believe so.
No, I don't think it is. If you don't know, then.
It's the Vigo.
Bigo. Okay, yeah. There's also EUC World, which is good to use.
And does it sync with all of like the?
I mean, it tells you all the stats of the wheel and stuff. Yeah. And lets you perform some functions on the wheel, but not all of them.
Before that, I had like the 9
This one has a display with all the stuff on it. Yeah.
That was probably what, like $2,000?
It is? No, it's just $4,000. Yeah.
does not give a good.
Especially after I got the pedals and the pads.
No, I hope it can, it can flourish because it was really slow because I had the 9x. It was the 9x1. It was like a year the speed, like almost 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
It was like I had it. No one knew what. No one still knows what it is. Everyone.
Yeah. Well, Gainesville's kind of under a rock, so.
Yeah, that. I mean, college. There's like 2-3 other guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love seeing them.
Yeah, I've seen like maybe one person on campus with it.
Yeah, I busted ass like right. It was like right over there.
Yeah, dude, I don't want to ever hurt myself anymore, so
I
get everything.
What injuries have you got?
I've hurt my fingers and my left hand.
Hey, how you doing? I just work on
And what else? I don't know. Yeah, my fingers, my shoulders. Yeah. Got nothing to worry about. Looks like you guys set up directly across from Planned Parenthood, huh?
Yeah.
Was that intentional?
No. I mean, this was just one of the tables that was open.
Yeah, I don't know. I used to not care. I mean, I don't really care. I guess. Like if some lady wants to get an abortion. The way I think of it is that I think it this way. Like say, like I don't know if you heard about the news about some guy who had special blood and he was able to save all these people's lives because he was able to give blood and help them. So it's like a real thing that's happened. But he didn't have to, right? So there's people who need the blood, they just die if they didn't get it. And I'm sure a lot of people who die don't get special blood. So I see it like that.
What's your name?
Like if you don't want to have a baby, you just cut off your consent and you don't have it, right?
Yeah, no, I see the point here.
Like if you can't give a zygote or a fetus rights that no one else has, right? So if you say to a woman that she has to have it, you're giving it a right that no one else has, and that's like my main argument.
So with the blood thing, I feel like blood is when you're having the choice to give or not give blood. I feel like blood is more. It's not. I wouldn't compare it to like a living being.
Well, it's the same scenario because someone's going to die if you don't do something. And the analogy is the state can't make you give blood. So it's your choice whether you want to help someone or not. Just like, because it takes initial and continued consent to give blood and make that happen.
Oh, definitely.
The same thing with having a baby. It's initial and continuous support. So, consent. So it's like, I just see it that way. Like, it's like we're not short on humans, right? So why should we care about what could be and instead worry about like what's already there?
Yeah, I'm not here to change your mind, obviously, and we're having a very productive conversation because my mom actually works at a blood bank, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
You know, the way that works, it's always voluntary. They give away things, for people to donate blood, and I feel like they
don't give out enough because they sell it.
They don't give it enough.
They sell. They sell it for money.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh, thanks, you're a good person. Go away now.
Yeah, they'll sell it. They'll sell people. They'll sell it to the hospitals, and that's how they do it. It's just when it comes to that, they have. I feel like there's decent enough, or there's enough amount of people choosing to give blood. Well, and like it's the O blood, correct? Like,
well, no, there's something special about this one dude's blood. It wasn't just that he was O. He had something special to help a specific type of person. I could probably Google it and figure it out really quick. But this specific type of people, it helped them.
How's it going, man? What's your name? I was curious. Can I join?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It sounds really interesting.
You joined after she came over and whispered something in your ear. What was that all about?
It sounds like it's an opportunity to have some civil debate.
No, we're having.
Why did she have to initiate it? What's up?
I don't know. I just didn't know you guys.
I caught you, didn't I? I caught you.
What's your name, man?
I'm talking to him.
Oh, okay.
Hey, what's your name, man?
Don't be a parrot.
Just trying to be friendly. Wow.
Ted.
Nice to meet you.
What's going on? Thanks for killing conversation. I don't even know where we were, man.
We were talking about the blood. We were talking about the blood.
Ah, yeah, the blood. So that's my fair analogy.
Yeah.
Do you think it's reasonable?
I think it's very reasonable, and people shouldn't be. I feel like it's when you blood and a fetus or a zygote, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is what it is. They're two different things because blood, it's not.
Well, I know they're two different things. I didn't say it was an exact analogy. There's an analogy between them two.
For sure.
It's not complete.
I don't.
What's up?
Sorry, you're comparing just blood to a fetus?
No. See, this is what happens when you.
Yeah. So I mean, no, I'm not. Yeah. So the argument he was making is that in a certain situation, some guy had blood that could have been donated. It was very special blood. It wasn't like blood. It was like
some special blood only certain people benefit from, and they would die without it.
Okay.
And
he gave blood and saved their lives.
Okay.
But he didn't have to.
Right.
It required his initial and continued consent in order to do so.
Right.
The state is not allowed to make you give blood.
Right.
The same context, the state should not be able to make you have a baby if you do not have continued consent.
That's an interesting argument.
That's a ridiculous analogy.
No, actually, it's not because you can't give a fetus or a zygote.
It's really simple, right?
You can't give a zygote or a fetus a right that nobody else has.
Okay, here. It's really simple. So
Sure.
a woman and a man conducts activity that they know will create what you might consider to be a human being, and it's about personal responsibility.
Well,
you make a problem, you own up to it. It's that simple.
Sex isn't consent to have children. Though.
Swimming isn't consent to get wet. Yeah, it's the same statement. It's ridiculous.
That's really, you can't argue by analogy
Okay, so
that way.
Why not?
I think the argument you're making
Because it had nothing to do with the topic.
What do you mean? I mean, you just said that sex isn't consent to get
It's
pregnant.
not consent to have children, right?
I think I
But
understand
if
your
you
point.
consciously take that risk, who should own up to that risk?
Well,
You
pregnancy
or an
has-
innocent third party?
The one who can get pregnant, the woman.
Right. So they should take responsibility, right? Like you said. If I go swimming and, I got bit by a shark.
So she can either take the morning after pill, have an abortion, give it for adoption, or leave it.
Now you're transferring
or
the
leave it on the
consequences of
steps
your irresponsibility
of fire.
onto a third party.
Oh my God.
Yes, you are.
Or leave it
Yes,
on the
you
steps
are.
of a fire department. What's her choice, right?
Why is it her choice to inflict bodily harm on another human being? If I stub my toe, my choice, is it okay if I punch you? Like, I don't get it.
I think the argument is that, so it's the basis that you can't force someone to do something. That's where you're coming from, right?
Yeah, right.
You can't force someone to
You're
give
trying to give rights to this unborn.
So you can't force someone to give blood, right? So there's the one flaw in the argument I want to mention is that there's a difference between refusing to help and intentionally killing. Because if I refuse to give blood, the difference is, do you know how the 4 abortion procedures work? Because it's very important, because if you're refusing to help someone, that's refusing to help. We're not obligated to help. We are obligated not to kill. So what abortion does is the first procedure cuts off the food supply, right, and ends up starving to death. The second procedure vacuums it out. It has hands. It has a face.
I recall.
The third procedure rips it apart limb from limb. Already conscious.
It's not relevant, but
right? So then
I don't see how it's relevant.
So you don't think that's killing a baby, ripping its arms and legs off?
Well, it's not a baby, no.
So when do you think it becomes a baby?
When it's born. That's the whole
So
definition.
10 seconds before it's born, it's a non-human clump of cells?
It's not a baby, that's correct.
Is that scientific, or is that your personal opinion?
That's the way the human language works.
That's your personal opinion.
That's the way the human language works.
You're not acknowledging science. If you really
I am acknowledging science.
Wait. So I
it's a fetus until birth. That's the English language.
A fetus is a stage of development. So is a toddler, an infant, adolescent.
You see, you have to give.
I think what you're missing is
you have to give it.
You're missing. Yes, you are.
No, you have to.
You're not acknowledging.
No, yes, I am. You have to give.
You're not, sir.
You're confusing the stages of life.
You have to give it a timestamp of when it then becomes a human birthright.
So it's called conception.
You can't say it's before birth, because then you just create a slippery slope.
Why?
You're like, when before birth? Well, it has a heartbeat then. Well, it can do this then. It's like none of that matters.
We're telling you it's conception. You're not listening. It's conception.
Why does it have to be conception?
Because a human being is defined scientifically by the possession of
No, but it's a combination of an egg and a sperm.
You can't just yell over me. Human being is defined by the combination of DNA, a mother's DNA and a dad's DNA. There was a study conducted. There's a 95% consensus by biologists, people who study life, people more educated than you, that confirm this. If you deny that, you're on the same level of anti-vaxxers, flat earthers, astronaut landing deniers. It's crazy. It's basic biology that you're denying here.
You could take an egg and a sperm, and they could become human.
You want to know why you're denying it?
By killing sperm and eggs, you're destroying possible life as well. If you scratch your nose, that can be used for cells.
Does sperm have a complete
You can manipulate cells on
I
your...
don't believe that's killing a human. Come on, you know
Well,
it's not the same.
it depends on what stage. Because when it joins,
it
needs a lot of growing in order to become.
I'm saying that sperm doesn't have a complete set
And in
of
fact,
DNA.
a woman can naturally get rid of it.
It's not going to be predictive.
You don't understand.
I just don't think you're willing to acknowledge the science.
Dude, there's an egg and a sperm. I don't know if you took middle school biology. There's an egg and a sperm.
I understand what you're trying to say. You're not saying I don't know. You're just trying to say, well, I gotcha because it's a human conception, therefore I gotcha. Like, that doesn't work.
Wait, so I think this
What are you talking about?
Because it relies on her body and her consent.
I think if
What do you
I
mean
bring
her
up an analogy.
She needs a consent to carry to term.
Why?
So I think there's...
In order for it to be born.
Yes, but why should she have that right
Because
to
it is
terminate
her
another
body
person?
and her decision.
Why does that matter?
One mean why? Because it's
You're
her
stacking
life.
two claims
It's
on-
her body. It's her
There's
life.
also
That's
a
why it
second
matters.
life there.
Just like a guy who wants to give blood, it's his blood. He decides whether to give it or not.
Well, it depends. Is it him giving blood or not killing another person that he created?
Yes.
That he created?
What does it matter whether he created it or not?
It doesn't matter if
it doesn't matter at all.
If I beat you
the analogy was he
you
can't be forced to give blood. Just like the woman can't force.
Can we all just calm our voices?
If you were to get serious,
why would you care about a potential? We have actuals out
here who need more help. If you were to get seriously harmed as a result of, let's say, a guy hurt you, right? His responsibility. He did that damage to you. Just like a woman having sex might create another human being. Doesn't he have a moral obligation to not be?
Are you guys with this table here?
Yeah.
Are you guys discussing the weather or something more serious?
A little bit more serious.
We're talking about the morality of abortion, but I really wanted to bring up a topic that I think might help clear this up for everyone. So let's say if there's a premature baby that's born. I was born prematurely, right?
If it was born, then there you go.
Wait. I was born at 8 months, right? And I was taken out of the womb at 8 months.
C-section?
Can you let me finish? Okay. There's another child, right, that's still in the womb at the same level of development. Are you saying one the same age as a baby and one's not because it's in a different location? Is that really
That is
your
correct.
argument?
That is correct.
Do you really
It has to be born.
So
That's correct.
that's your personal opinion, though. That's not
No, that's the
scientific.
definition of baby.
Hey, I appreciate your time, Ted. This is not going to be productive.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Well,
if you're not willing to have an honest conversation,
I mean, if
this
I
is
don't
not-
agree with you,
no,
then
because
it's
you're
not productive.
No, because you're saying
contradicting
babies.
yourself.
Not at all. I did not
Yes, you
contradict
Your
myself
position is
once.
so
Yes, you
untenable.
did.
We
Not
all
once.
see it.
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Not
can
once.
I say
Tell me
something?
how I
Yeah,
did.
go
Tell
ahead.
me how I did.
Yes, because
Okay,
you're not
so the way
willing
I
to
see
admit
it
that it's a human. Because
is-
you're saying
It's
that
a potential
I think that,
human.
No,
like
you're
human
saying
life,
because it's
human
outside the womb, it's a
conscious
baby. Inside
That's
it's
because
not.
it was
that
born. You
develops-
just told me you were born.
Not because we
Yeah,
have a
but that
soul or
doesn't-
anything.
you're saying it's not human
but
before
it's
it's
like
born,
because
though.
we develop
It's a
complex
potential human baby.
neural
So
network.
okay, so when
complex
so you're saying magically it
biological
becomes
brain.
human when it's born?
No, it
And that's
becomes a
when
baby
that
when it's
human
born.
Magically, though.
consciousness
Not
emerges,
magically.
that
It's called
human
birth.
thinks.
No,
Birth is not
is,
magical.
Birth is
That's
a
the
change
development
of
argument.
location.
Complexity, sentience,
Right,
context,
correct.
That's not
That
a
is
change
correct.
of development.
So
It doesn't matter.
what
If
would
it's
you
change
say
of
is
location,
development?
that's where
So you're
you
saying
make
if
it.
I'm here
Seeing,
and then I go
feeling,
here,
feeling,
I'm a different
ability to
person.
think, like, what's specific,
If
right?
you're inside a
What we're
womb
doing is
and
now
you're
establishing
a
location,
fetus, you become a baby.
So your
That's how it
scientific
works.
argument
You're
is
trying to make a
never really
weird
developed.
little
No.
analogy.
So your
thing.
scientific
What
argument
would
is
be the-
location determines
not a person,
whether it's a human.
bam, you're
Whether it's a
What's the-
baby or
what's the
not.
switch?
I didn't
that's
say
the stage
human.
of development.
You said human. I said
Okay,
baby.
so are you saying
This is
that-
obviously important.
How can you be human and not?
I mean,
not a
there's
person?
obviously a moral gray area.
Talking about a
is the
baby
thing.
versus a fetus.
I'm
Okay,
not saying
so
that there's a
what is that? You
specific
can be an
spot.
infant.
I don't know why this is
person.
difficult.
But there's
You're not.
definitely
You're not.
That's
You're not.
important, yeah.
You're not
in our society,
acknowledging.
there's definitely
Acknowledging
not a
what?
moral
You're not
consensus.
acknowledging
You're trying to
That's
you're trying to
You're
change the
not
goalposts.
No, I'm not.
You're trying to change the
Everyone's
goalposts.
saying if it's not.
Well, as a
But
human,
rebirth,
well,
if there
human
is not
cells,
a-
yeah.
Why? Because just so
So
location.
what?
100%.
Right, exactly.
That's
It's called
not
birth.
scientific.
It's called birth. That's when it gets it
That's not
right.
scientific, though.
That's when we assign it rights.
100 years ago, there was
okay,
not a
that's when we
consensus
assign it
whether or
right.
not
Correct.
black person
So
was
you
a full
still
human
acknowledge
being.
it's a human.
That doesn't mean that
It's got
people were saying,
human
yeah,
cells,
black people
could be a
deserve rights
potential
for
human.
it.
Okay,
that's
so
not-
it's
that's
not
not
a
like
human if it has
subjective.
all the
I didn't
bodily
say
systems
anything about
made.
human. You're
What do you
using
mean
the word
that's a
human.
You
I'm
said
not.
you said it
Black
might be a
people
human.
objectively are just as
No, I did not
It
say
is-
that.
you
I don't
said
think
it
I
might
said
be.
that.
Yeah, it has the potential to be. It
It
is
has
or
the
it isn't.
potential to be a baby. That's probably what I meant.
Okay, because that's what happens when you grow. A baby has the potential to be a toddler.
Why?
Right.
What's the
Sure.
difference?
Whether it's born or not. I mean, I don't know why it's difficult.
It's difficult because you're not acknowledging rights of
Acknowledging
living
what?
humans.
We kill like
We're living
cows.
humans. And you
What?
think because
Okay,
their location is
I'm
different, we
talking
should be
about
able to kill
fetus
them.
versus baby, and you're trying to use the word human. As if that could be a blanket statement all over
It
it.
is that.
No.
Every stage of development is a human.
We have to give a cutoff time for one that has rights. We can't say before then, because then we create a
I don't
slippery
know.
slope.
So there's a human,
I
you
really
can
don't
be
care
human and
about
not have rights.
That
I
is
think a
correct.
child
So,
is just
what are
valuable
potential
for
human as far as being born?
biological and complex
That's just a waste
For
of
the
time.
same
Not
reason,
to have-
I don't know why it's hard to understand.
Because you're not acknowledging basic embryology and biology.
But it doesn't matter who acknowledges what. It doesn't matter what you think
Are you saying the law should
So I don't
determine
care if you're
the
a
law
person
is morally
that's
right?
30 seconds
You
old,
have to be
3
sensible,
years
which is
old,
why it's at
Sensible.
birth. Yes, so
I
it's
just
reasonable
think
to
it's
do
They can
that.
feel
But I just
pain.
need to be innocent.
Consciously
It
feel
doesn't
pain.
matter.
You don't
And I
care.
don't
doesn't
see
matter.
any
So what
other set
That's your opinion.
criteria.
So what if I said I can accuse kids? It doesn't
Why
matter.
does that matter?
30 seconds.
No,
after
now you're
Why
creating
does
a
that
pretty
matter?
bogus.
No,
now
it
you're
doesn't
creating a pretty
matter.
bogus thing.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, then.
Because you're not willing to
Now
accept
we're talking about
morality.
something else.
No, we're not. I'm
Yeah, we
using
are.
your analogy
Person
and
wouldn't
putting
say
it to a
that.
Their
living
moral
human.
values
That's
don't
what a fetus
classify
is.
as a person.
Okay.
You're not willing to be
What do you
honest
think
about
the
it.
I'm very
Nazis
honest.
and
You're not.
communists
I am
did?
very
They
honest.
said,
You're
"Hey,
You're just
they
trying to say
classified
that,
Jews,
because
said,
it's human,
well,
it should
you know,
be good no
you're
matter what
Jewish,
it is.
Yes, I
No.
think humans deserve
Nope.
rights.
Women should decide whether she has a baby or
Not
not.
all humans deserve rights.
You
Yeah,
should
that's
decide
bad.
when you should
So
have
you
a
I
baby.
always
say
think
what's-
that you should have the
I say
right to
what's
rip
valuable
apart a
in human
human
life is
baby and a
conscious.
human
You should
fetus
be able
inside
to
of you.
terminate the pregnancy.
By doing what?
Why?
By terminating
By
it.
doing what?
There you go. Or when
You're
you're in a
using
coma,
Trying to
people in
use
comas running
emotion.
inside.
It's not
to-
emotion,
See,
it's reality.
that's what
It's
you
not
guys try to
emotion.
do with your
No,
abortion
it's
talk,
it's
with
logical,
your religion
scientific, and
talk.
embryology.
You try to use
I have a
emotional
conscience.
words
It's not
to
religious.
try to
Yes,
gear
it
people
No,
to
it's
it.
logic
So
and
why
science.
does you
Tell
having
me what happens
consciousness
during an
make
abortion
Why?
procedure.
Why?
Because it's
Why?
important to know what it is.
Really?
Like,
Why?
seems kind of counterintuitive.
What does it matter? What does it matter?
Hold on.
What does it matter?
Hold on.
No, I'm asking you,
think the
what
truth
gives a
matters?
person
You're trying to use
Why is
emotional
it that
words.
I'm telling you,
What does it matter?
It's not emotional.
Yes, you are. That's exactly what you're trying to do.
Pavement, is that emotional?
Exactly what you're trying to
This is
do.
reality. What happens
It's not.
Right, so
is
utilitarian, right? That's the same
You're not
argument
willing
that the communists
you're not
and
willing to
Nazis
actually
used to get
stand
rid
your
of the Jews.
position, saying
It's
that.
not
I
necessarily
am in my
moral,
position.
but
I'm
it's
telling you, once it's born, it has
Tell
rights.
me-
That's the whole
so
purpose.
say the words.
That's why we say when it's born, it has
about
rights.
morality. You're talking over me. This is a waste of
Well,
time.
because you're not saying anything of substance.
Because you're not willing to acknowledge it.
Acknowledge what?
You can't say I support the ripping apart of a preborn
Well, see,
human.
you're trying to use
95%
emotional
That's
words
what
to try to See, that's dishonest. That's dishonest. Just say terminate. Then just say terminate pregnancy.
That's a dishonest term.
Oh, okay, it's dishonest.
So what happens?
So you have to be dealing with emotions in order to have an honest discussion.
So we're not dealing with emotions.
Okay.
So that's your response is okay. Your
Okay.
response,
But that's what you're aiming for.
Is
That's
okay.
what you're aiming for.
I think you can take a
If you can draw this grotesque,
their way out.
if you can draw the grotesque picture,
Just walk away.
No, I think everyone has rights.
I want
I would
to
ride it right now.
I want to have productive discussions, and this is not productive.
well, you know,
I mean, what
what happens when you try to say that, you know,
Okay, bro.
rights are whenever rights are during conception?
Bro, we're good, bro.
Oh, I'm good.
It's a waste of time. Because
You're a waste
Women's
of time.
voting
You
rights,
can't say what an abortion
status
is.
of
You can't
racial
say what it is.
minorities.
Say that.
You're getting nowhere in this discussion.
Say
You're
that.
getting nowhere.
That's what the argument is about, the act of an abortion. What are you missing?
Who cares?
That's
What
what the
does it
whole
matter?
topic is about, is the act itself. And you're
So
trying to
what?
talk-
What does it matter what the act is?
Because that's what the whole
So
debate
you
is
rip
about.
it up into shreds. Who cares? So what?
So,
you
in other
support
words,
that?
using a
Sure, why not?
scientific
I think so, but it doesn't
how
matter
is
what
that
you think.
valid?
What matters is a person has the right to end their pregnancy if they don't have continued consent
ripping
in
the
order to have
child
it.
in the
It doesn't matter whether you rip it up or burn it or crucify it
Why do we kill animals?
or bury it.
Oh my God.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, but why do we say it's
Listen,
morally justified?
I'm glad
Or
you don't have
vacuum
to-
it out and then
glad you
make
don't
a
have-
soup out of
Like
it.
if I were to go out
Like it
and
doesn't matter what you
an
do.
animal.
I'm glad you don't have
But generally, what most people
Right.
That's disgusting.
Oh, okay.
So what's the difference in me saying I think we should be able to kill infants and crucify them?
No, if you don't understand
What's
that,
the
then
difference?
I'm not
Tell
even
me
going
what
to
the
engage.
difference is.
I'm not even going to engage.
What's the
in that.
biological difference between an infant and a
Not even going to
human?
engage
What's the
in that.
difference?
Not even going to engage.
Because you can't
I
answer
thought you
it.
said you were
What
good.
happens
Because
right
you
after
can't
the
answer
You're
it.
not good, so don't want to talk to me.
Because you can't answer it. That's why.
Oh, okay.
That's your
With
response.
with
Is
your
okay.
weird red herrings, yeah.
When you say you can't, when you don't respond, you say
I'm
okay.
pretty sure I responded.
You can't.
Pretty sure I responded.
All the best, bro.
Now she came over to you because she's like, oh, he's the alpha male. He knows what's going on.
No,
He can take care of it.
See, now you're trying to attack my character because you don't have an argument of substance.
I pretty much told you my argument and they kicked your asses.
I feel like the primary
Waste of time,
with the
bro.
gray
Yeah.
area stands that you guys can't find common ground to where location and the definition of where an abortion, like what and what an abortion is.
That's the whole debate is what it is.
I mean,
You don't care about it.
I think the primary thing that we've come to is that both of us, all of us, share a different opinion. And
Potentially.
I'm not
What do you mean
here
it's
to
potentially
change
there?
it.
But, yeah, but if you had your way, you would make it
It's
so
there.
abortion was
You just
illegal
can't see it, right?
and you would have to give birth.
I hope
Well, then
so.
you're giving that child
Otherwise,
the right that no
pregnant
one else
looking woman
has.
might have a serious
Or
problem.
that potential
That
child.
has the right that we have because we have the right not to be killed.
No, well, then you.
That's our right.
Well, then they should be able to force
So
someone
they
to
don't
give
have that
blood.
right, too.
Should be able to force someone to give
blood is
blood
not
in
a-
order to save someone
Blood
else.
is not a
But if they
All
don't do that, if
That's
that's
a
not a law,
You know it's
then you're
not a- I
don't
giving
think
the
that's being
potential
done.
child a right that no one else
I
I don't
has.
think
And
there
that's-
is a moment.
And you're taking away the right from the person to decide when to have a child or not. It's not like we're short on
What
humans
point
or
is
anything
that?
like that, are we? Are we
don't
short
know.
on humans?
So we should-
We're up to 7.7 billion people,
So
are we
we should kill
not?
them? We should
Why
just
not?
kill them because the mother
I'm
doesn't
asking
want
you,
them?
Why
That's your
not? Why
argument?
is it?
You can
why
decide
is
when to
it
have a
not-
child. It's not like
Why
the
is it
state of the
not
human
proven
species.
negative?
So if you support ripping apart babies,
Yes, I do.
Here's
I
the-
definitely do.
I'm asking why.
Definitely.
I don't
I'm
know why
picking
not.
those
You have
bitches
to tell me
up.
why.
Sure.
That's disgusting.
Of course.
Like
I mean,
why?
it's a moral question.
Any way I can.
Right, but what's your
Ted,
reason?
good talk.
Why you said
Thank you so
specifically,
much.
not a person?
Amazing.
or
Do you mind if do you mind if I take a picture of it and send it to my dad? He's fascinated with stuff. I won't
Sure.
put your face in it.
Baby,
Sure.
Yeah, if the baby's born,
you can join twins. Need
It doesn't mean the mother will survive.
so you're
I'll
saying the
get
baby's
that.
We have an apparatus in this country.
Yeah, man. I appreciate your time today.
It's been fun, man.
Yeah, glad we both had fun doing it. Thank you so much.
All right, man.
Would you like to answer our question on the board?
It's a religious group. Is this like the other group, the Mormons, where they have a chalkboard up and they ask you some meaningless question that has nothing to do with anything that real humans?
Not exactly. We wouldn't think
Close.
We're Baptists. We're not Mormon. But it's intentionally vague to spark conversation and discussion. So, but it relates to an important question.
Well, I think that
What's your name, by the way?
Ted.
Ted. I'm Kurt.
I think that hey, Kurt. I think that I think we should be able to do enough to switch around our finances enough to get people to do some basic college without having to pay so much money. I mean, I think the debt that people are in are pretty bad. I think there's a way. I think there's a way to do it. Just like if we had Medicare for all, which I think we should have a public option. We'd be spending less money on that if we had that than we are currently. So it would save us money to go to a public option. On the same aspect, I haven't done the homework, but I'm going to assume that if we had some sort of tax-paying ability for universities, that we'd be able to afford that too. Because, I mean, if you think about it, when you come out of a hospital, they give you a bill. It's usually not very itemized, and they inflate the price. So it's pretty high up there. But then when you ask for an itemized list, they make it cheaper. But stuff is still expensive. And when it comes to schools, universities are pretty expensive too. But if you had a tax-paying public way of getting basic college done, I bet you we'd see a lot of those costs down a little bit. So, as far as answering the actual question here of should debt be forgiven, I think at least the loans that create interest over time, those definitely should, because they're just destroying people. Ones that don't have interest, I don't know. I would like to see the ones that do create interest to be gone, the ones that don't, not quite yet, and then a public option created, or a college created for people, and then we can just do away with the whole loan shit. That's what I think.
Are you a student here?
No, I was.
Okay. Are you teaching or something?
No, I'm hanging out. I work in town.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But we're relating that to our faith, the debt.
How so?
Like Jesus paid the debt for our sin.
Ah, there we go. There's the curveball.
There's the curve right there.
So you didn't really care about anything I said. That's great.
No, I still care. I mean, it's a really interesting topic just to talk about. I mean, I talk about it a lot with people because I got friends.
But then you just jumped right to Jesus, though.
Well,
so should I believe you?
I'm coming back to the student loan thing now because I've got friends that
go ahead.
had debt and now their debt's forgiven.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like
it's only 10,000 though.
Right. But it's kind of unfair for those people. I know a guy that would just take semesters off of school and work to pay for school so he wouldn't have
it was just.
And so he should have just gone to school and gotten the debt and then gotten it forgiven. So in that way, I don't think it's really fair.
Well. If he did that, then if he didn't get one of the loans that if he gets one of the loans that creates interest, then he's going to be screwed if he takes so long to pay it off. So.
Yeah.
But the whole Jesus thing you mentioned. What do you have for non-believers who come up here? Like I don't believe that Jesus I don't even see any reason that he ever existed. So what do you have for people who don't believe?
Well, hopefully this is a chance to dialogue.
What's that?
Dialogue and talk about issues like that.
But what would there be to talk about other than trying to answer the question, why should we believe Jesus ever existed or still exists in some way, or that there is a God? Like, if you can't tell us, you got to tell us what a God is, right, in the first place, because you can't say something exists unless you tell us what it is, and then you got to go through the trouble of trying to show it exists, but you still got to define it first, but everyone defines it wrong. It's like it's an undefined trash. It's undefined. Like, why should I believe in something that's not defined? Like, what does that mean? What is a God? What is, like, Jesus? Like, why should I believe in any of that?
Well, I mean, from our perspective, we believe Jesus was an actual person.
Okay.
The Bible says that if you've seen Jesus, then you've seen God. So that raises the argument, well, did he really exist?
Well, there's no contemporary writers who ever wrote about him alive during his time. They're all stuff written well after his supposed existence.
I don't think that's his.
It is true. Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
It is very true.
Like the book of Matthew is attributed to his disciple Matthew.
Those are just names given to the Bible. We don't actually know those are real people.
Well, I think there's a lot of evidence to. Have you heard of textual criticism as far as the ancient texts? It's not a religious term. It's just more of a term related to ancient texts.
Why would you actually believe he existed? Just because the religion tells you so?
No, I mean, I've done my homework. I've done the historical study and There's actually a guy named Lee Strobel who wrote a book called
Yeah.
Place for Christ. I don't know if you know that one. And he studied. I mean, he
People
was
can
not a
study and still come to the wrong conclusion.
Well,
Because when you study and you come to a certain conclusion, like scientists does, they show the work they've done in order to get to that spot. But all these people who, because everyone's born an atheist, right? You only believe in a guy because you were indoctrinated as a child, or you're just ignorant and you were told it and you just do. So
I wouldn't really agree with that either. I mean, I feel like there's a God impulse in all of us.
I don't even know what that means.
Like there's a inner longing for God that I think God gives us.
What makes you think that?
Like, just look around the world. I mean,
So no real reason.
no, I think there's this, and I think if people don't feel that impulse with God, they'll feel it with something else. They'll feel it with
Something more realistic, maybe, hopefully?
or like some
do
other
we-
way of finding your identity.
Because if we can't show that this God thing actually exists, should we really believe in it? I mean, should we believe in anything that doesn't really show to exist? Because it sounds like you're just like using feelings. And like, oh, look around, decide for yourself. Those are like feelings. Those are an actual, like, if I'm going to tell you that a unicorn, a magical pink unicorn exists, you're going to want to know why, like, where is it? How do you know? Like, you're going to ask me questions about it to try to show, But if someone asks you that about a God and you just talk about your feelings, then we're not looking at the actual problem. The assertion was God exists. What do we have on this God thing? If all we're doing is looking at our feelings, we're not looking at what we should be looking at. Like if I tell you, I believe in an invisible unicorn because I just feel there is one. The unicorn's still over there or it's not. It's like, dude, you're not talking about me. You're not showing anything about me.
I would ask you the question: well, what evidence do you have that there's one?
Well, see, the default position is to not have belief, right? Because you shouldn't believe in anything unless something shows to exist. That's the way logic works, right? So I'm open to the existence of anything as long as it shows to exist.
And when it comes to Jesus or God, none of us is probably going to see Jesus because he lived 2,000 years ago.
Well, people think he did anyway.
Right. And so we don't have any.
So then why should we believe it? Should we not believe in it?
I'd say it's based on the evidence.
What evidence? But there's no evidence. There's no good evidence. I mean, you can say there's evidence, but there's no good evidence, right?
I would say that there is good evidence.
Like what?
I would say the ancient manuscripts.
When were those written?
Well, here's something really interesting about it.
Well, what are these ancient manuscripts?
There's been ancient manuscripts. Like even if you read a Christian Bible, there's notes typically at the bottom that say some manuscripts say this, some manuscripts say this. So my study is textual criticism. You can look it up on Wikipedia.
But if there's nothing written during his lifetime, why should we actually believe any?
Well, the thing is those copies that have been found, and sometimes it's just scrap fragments, like the Dead Sea Scrolls had fragments from the Gospel of John. We can determine, okay, these were copied from some other source.
But we don't know what the source is, we don't know when it was written, we don't know who wrote it, and it wasn't written during Jesus' post-lifetime. So again, without anything from Jesus' life to show he existed, and even if we could show he existed, why should we think it wasn't just a nutcase? Why should we believe that he had anything to do with the God?
Well, the manuscripts
And we still don't know what a God is, right?
Well, I have a pretty clear picture.
What is it?
God, he's the creator. He created all of us.
Okay, now you're defining something about what you think it's done. I want to know what it is. Like what it's made of, where it lives, how we know the things about it, how we know it's actually there.
I mean, the Bible says he dwells in unapproachable light.
Why should we believe that?
He's eternal.
But eternal, do we know anything that's eternal? Because you're defining it by things we don't know anything that's eternal, right? We don't know of anything that's eternal. So why should we think that this God is eternal?
Well, I mean, it's really self-revelation of what he's said about himself through the prophets in the Old Testament. It's really, those things are based on how he's described himself. This is who I am. Love, God of order. He created order in the universe and nature. It says that we're created in his image. So
why should we believe that?
I just feel like there's a lot of evidence for that.
But you wouldn't be able to say what it is.
I mean, I'm giving you some, but...
Oh, you think that was evidence?
Yeah, I would say that's evidence.
Okay.
I mean, I would say creation is...
Well, how do you know this is creation?
Well...
If everything was created, how do we know it's natural? Right? Because something has to be natural in order for something else to be creation, right? We have to have the two.
I would say the precision that we see.
What precision?
As far as how everything works together in nature.
Dude, I breathe through the same pipe that I eat. That's not awesome. How is that awesome?
I think it's
I could
incredible.
choke. Is that like super awesome thought put into that?
I mean, I guess you could choke.
I mean,
So, I mean, I think it's based on if you go into a court of law,
there's not going to be any evidence for God in the court of law.
well, I'm just saying about something else.
Right.
Like, say there's an accident.
But then that's something else that's not talking about God, though, right? You're trying to use an analogy, but you can't use analogies for arguments.
Well, I would say the argument would be that it's based on the evidence, giving it a fair trial and evidence.
But you need evidence in order to do that. If what you say is evidence, then that wouldn't be acceptable because it wouldn't really be defining what we're talking about or showing it exists. It's based on your feelings.
What would you say would be some good evidence?
Like I said, telling us what is it? What is it made of? Is it a being? What kind of being? Where does it live? How does it exist? What's its daily life about? Like, how do we know anything about it? Not only that, but how do we know those things about it? How do we know it is those things you just said? But you are just referring to a book you read called the Bible. To you, that's good enough. But to the skeptic, it's not telling us anything. It does not help the non-believer because you're kind of asking people who don't believe to just believe. Like, we need something to go by, right?
Are you thinking more like a philosophy?
No, scientific evidence, like stuff that we can test and show is true. Just, if I tell you that an electrokinetic cycle exists, like this, you're like, well, how do I know? I'm like, well, because this, and I give you evidences for what it is, how it works, that I've seen one, that I even have one, and I would be able to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about my feelings. I'm not going to talk about, well, I think that it could because, it's so fast. It's love to me because I love them. So to me, it's love. Like, I wouldn't be saying those things. I'd be talking about the wheel, right? If we don't talk about a God and what it is and how we know it exists, then we're being just as ambiguous as I would be about my wheel if I tried to do that wheel. But you don't seem like you understand that.
I would say this is another probably the most crucial amount of evidence. And if this is not true, then our faith is completely useless. If this is true, everything hinges on this one fact. Did Jesus die on the cross and did he rise again?
Right. We have no reason to think he ever existed. So if we don't know, the default position should be without belief. And if you want to be honest with yourself and not just go because what someone says so, if you're really truly honest with yourself, you'd be like, I don't believe Jesus existed because there's no reason for me to. And if that leaves your religion to be gone and you purge from this, then so be it. But you would be more honest to say, I don't know, because it's okay to say, I don't know. Like, I don't know how everything came to be, and that's a fair answer to give because we don't know.
I would say there's a lot of evidence that Jesus did rise from the grave.
I don't. We even know he existed first. How can we think that he rose from grace?
Tons of reason to believe that he existed. If you look even through Jewish history.
I don't think so. Nothing during his closed lifetime.
Like
people wrote after the fact, like Josephus was interpolation, Tacitus was during Roman time, who just repeating the then believed stories about Christianity. I mean, all these people were well after the fact that Jesus supposedly existed.
I mean,
we don't even know who wrote the Bible. We don't even know the author.
There's a lot of authors.
Right, and it was rewritten over time by Constantine and people. It's just they messed with it because it put people in line. It made them. It's like a form of control.
I can say 100% without a doubt Constantine didn't mess with the Bible.
Oh, you think so, huh?
Well, he may have, but what we have now is not.
Why do we still have the Bible condoning slavery as well? I mean, why wasn't that edited down?
That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that if you look at the New Testament, the Apostle Paul wrote about slavery, and his teachings actually is what abolished slavery in the Roman.
Well, no, I think the Republicans did. As far as this country is concerned, anyway. I'm not a Republican,
but I'm just talking about like in Roman Empire slavery. The teachings of Paul like really that's what helped lead to the abolition.
Well, I would just read Exodus 21 and see all you know. That, I mean, because Jesus said, everything that came before is still valid. So that means Exodus is still valid and is still.
And I mean that's slaves being freed from Egypt.
Right. Well, and the Bible talks about how to make your slaves stay forever.
It also talks about releasing slaves, like giving them the option to stay.
Yeah, it gives them the option to stay, but also teaches you how to trick them into staying for life, and how it's okay to beat them as long as they don't kill them. It's in Exodus 21. Guarantee you. It's in there.
Have to go back and
Yeah. They don't teach you that in Bible study. Like, oh, today we're gonna read Exodus 21. We're gonna learn about slavery. Let's go. Everybody ready? Grab your coffee. Let's sit down. Have a nice little Bible study.
I mean, in seminary, we would have to write papers about topics like that, hard topics.
Yeah.
How does that reconcile with the New Testament? And things like that. So, it seems like slavery. I think that's probably one of the more difficult questions to discuss.
Yeah.
Typically, when people are more skeptical, that's typically what they land on, as far as not wanting to believe what the Bible says. But if you look at the New Testament, even just the thread of Scripture, you can't really say that the Bible condones.
Like what?
You can't really say that the Bible
I think I can by looking at Exodus 21.
Can you tell me your name again?
Ted.
It's pretty fun. It's fun talking about this stuff. You don't always have these conversations with people. So.
No. You're dealing with students here. They're easily influenced.
Where'd you grow up?
Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you working on campus?
No, I work off campus.
Okay. What did you study? Did you study here at UF?
Yeah.
What
I'm in
was
the STEM field. I work IT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. This guy's aerospace engineering.
Cool.
And you're aero too? Yeah. I didn't know that. Cool. We've met. You're Ella. But we've met before. We've said. I feel like we've shaken hands. No. We've at least waved. So I'll shake you. Yeah, man. Thanks for your time. Good talking to you. Have a good day. Yeah, thanks for your honest dialogue. So have a good one. You too.
Did you watch that spectacle?
I saw part of it. I didn't get very much of it. How did it go?
They tried to use the emotional words of, what happens during abortion, and you rip it out. I'm like, so I'm just like, I gave in. I'm like, yeah, let's rip it out. I mean, chop it up, turn to soup. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is a life? I'm like, life's been going on for millions of years, and it's an ongoing process. And then I gave him the analogy of how you can't give a fetus or a zygote rights that no one else has. So you can't say you have to give birth to a child if you can't tell a man you have to give blood if your special blood saves this person's life.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They kept trying to say that's a bad analogy, horrible, and stuff like that. But I mean, someone's going to die if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Someone's going to die, and then they try to say, "Oh, well, you're just not complacent in abortion. You actually have to do something." And they try to say that that's why it's not a good analogy. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. Sometimes it's hard to engage with them. They're gonna keep drilling in their own point, even if it doesn't make sense or it won't break it down.
Yeah. When I say, "Oh, it's not a baby till birth," they're like, "Oh, but it's human." They kept trying to say it's human instead of, "Well, it's a fetus before birth." And then and then he tried to give the thing of, "Well, I was born first, and he had to do a C-section or something on me or whatever, but I had a twin that was still in there. So tell me, am I a baby now?" I'm like, "Yeah, you were born, and that one's not." Like, I don't understand. What's the problem?
Where did we stop disagreeing?
So how different are we? Well, because that it's like a foot that way, that somehow it's like, yeah, it's called not being born yet. That's what that is. And he thought that I was not being honest because I didn't agree with him. Something like that.
Anyway, they're kind of arguing at it.
I don't know. I just think that there are better things to worry about. Like actual kids here who need assistance in the world than potentials.
All the millions of kids in child care and foster care.
I was a foster kid.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the conversation.
Smart. Thank you for, trying to engage with them at least, trying to get their arguments wrapped up.
I started off all friendly, but
yeah.
But then I was talking to this one guy, and this girl goes over to this other guy, and he's like, she talked to him, then he just came over and started talking to me. So I knew that he was like, she sicked him on me.
Yeah. They're like, wait, and then the other one.
Yeah. I like your hair.
Oh, thank you.
Got a lot of stuff to edit, guys. I'm not looking forward to it. Okay, it's not much, but got to join 2 videos. What's up? Hi. How's it going? Pray for me?
Yes, sir.
What's that going to do?
Well, I think
Help me? You guys can help me? How would it help me?
It opens a channel of grace in your life.
A what?
that our Lord
A
is
channel of grace.
A channel of grace. Like a TV channel? Like, what does that mean?
Kind of.
Explain it to me.
We believe in a God who is faithful, and we believe that when we ask Him for things, He will not disappoint us. He will give
Does
us.
God have a plan?
I believe that He does have a plan.
Well, then isn't praying asking to disrupt that plan?
I don't think so.
No?
Because we believe that God has His absolute will and His permissive will.
What is a God?
God is being itself.
What does that mean?
That means that God is the source and font of all.
What is it made of? Where does it live?
God is pure spirit.
What is a spirit?
It's something that is beyond what is corporeal, is what we believe.
What does that mean?
Well, it's something that's difficult for us to
Then
comprehend.
how do you know it exists if you can't comprehend it?
Because He's shown us His great works.
How do you know He's done anything?
Because we have Jesus Christ, our greatest
Jesus?
example.
Where is He? Where is He?
He lives in heaven now.
How do you know that?
Because He's ascended, we have the witness of it.
What witness? Where?
It's written in our great book here.
Why do you believe that there's witnesses writing in there about Jesus?
Well, I think that we have pretty good historical evidence that a man named Jesus Christ rose from
Really?
the dead.
Written by who?
Written by, well, we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Those are names given to the Bible and not actually people.
Yeah, but I think we have pretty good reason to
But they were
believe
written
that.
well after Jesus' supposed existence, though, right?
I'm sorry?
They were written well after Jesus existed,
Maybe like 50 years at most.
which is well after He existed.
Well,
So
you gotta
did anyone
understand.
write about Jesus while He was alive?
I'm sure that these things were being recorded while He was alive.
But
And
we
it's
don't have any,
eyewitness
right?
testimony that it's based on as well.
But we don't have any of those writings, do we?
We do.
Well,
We have historical writings from like secular counterparts
from where?
that, like secular people who are not in the church who record like the existence of a man named Jesus.
But not during His supposed lifetime.
I don't know if it was during his lifetime.
So that's important because if you start a rumor in the morning in school, and by the end of the day the rumor's going to become something totally different, right? And that's just one day. We're talking about many, many years of a story being told. You know, why should we believe what's finally written down?
I think that given the amount of stuff that we have,
Uh-huh.
and if we compare it to like other things from around as long ago that we do hold to be historically accurate, I think we have a pretty good like manuscriptural basis to believe that we have.
So you're going to believe Jesus existed because your book, written by unknown authors, says He existed, and you just believe it.
No, I believe that there's good historical evidence that a man rose from the dead 2,000 years ago. And if
Do you know of
someone-
anyone who's rose from the dead yourself? Have you
No,
seen
I
anyone
don't.
rise from the dead?
I've never seen anyone.
Then
rise
why
from the
makes you think that Jesus could have?
Because that's exactly the point, right? That if
No.
someone rose from the dead, then clearly he has something that everyone else
Right,
does
but
not have.
but you don't know of anyone that can raise from the dead, so you don't even know it's possible. Right? So
Well-
you hear a story that he did, but you didn't even know it was possible.
Well, naturally...
Doesn't that make it less believable?
Naturally, it's not possible, but if I believe
right.
that something is supernatural and
but what is supernatural?
What is natural?
Supernatural is above and beyond the natural world, right?
That's correct.
So then how do we know anything's supernatural if it's above and beyond the natural world?
Well, we can observe our natural law, right? And if something contradicts and there's not a good explanation for why it contradicts the natural law that we can see, then we can then investigate further and see if that is supernatural.
But there's nothing to investigate. It's just a story, though, right? I mean, how can we investigate that Jesus actually existed without just believing what someone wrote?
I don't think it's worth dismissing, accounts from several people that a man rose from the dead. I think we should investigate why that happened. And if the best example, or if the best explanation for that is that, oh, this man might be sent from God or something else.
How about the best explanation is, I don't know, and therefore non-belief would be more logical?
I don't know if not knowing is the end-all, be-all.
But if you don't know, then isn't it honest with yourself when you say you don't know? Isn't it okay to say I don't know? I don't know how everything came to be.
It's okay to say I don't know, but I think then we should go and investigate.
Well, you have to have something to investigate. That's why you say I don't know, because you have nothing to investigate.
We have a lot to investigate.
Like what?
But that's what faith is. Faith is that maybe we can't 100% see everything, but there's merit in believing.
Okay, what if someone has faith that you're wrong? Like, whose faith wins? How do you pin faith against faith and decide who wins?
Because whose faith is correct, whose faith is based in reality.
Well, faith is not really a way of obtaining information, right? We can't know anything through faith, right? Because someone can have faith that you're wrong, you can have faith that you're right, and then who do you decide who's right?
Well, whose faith is true? Whose faith comes to fruition?
Well, whose faith is true? Well, what is truth, right? Truth is a degree to which a statement corresponds with reality. If you make an assertion that a God exists, you have to look at the truth factor of that. You can't use faith because you're not figuring out truth. If you can figure out truth, then you wouldn't need faith, right? Because faith is without reason, right? If you have reason to believe something, you wouldn't need faith.
I don't think faith is opposed to reason. I think it's
without it.
Beyond reason.
If it's beyond, then why use it at all if we can't come to any conclusions because it's beyond our understanding?
I'd be inclined to agree that faith isn't a way to which we would start to know God. I don't think that one can necessarily come to know God without having, for example, an encounter wherein someone brings that knowledge to someone. So I agree, okay, just by saying I believe in this doesn't make it true.
Right.
But I think that we have good evidence with which we can then investigate and say, okay, we have decent evidence. How can we determine whether or not this person did these things? And then from there, if he did these things, what did he say, right?
But how are you going to convince the unbeliever? Because if you just say, I think we should investigate, but you're here saying that it's real, as if you've already done your investigation. So if you've already done your investigation and you think you're right, you're correct, then when someone asks you a question, you should be able to give an answer, right? If I ask you what a God is and how we know one exists, you should be able to spit out those answers instead of, well, we should be able to investigate, blah, blah, blah. You should have concrete answers. Because if I say that there's like a pink magical unicorn somewhere, and you say, well, how do you know it's a pink magical unicorn somewhere? I'm like, well, because I feel it. Because I read a book, and because, it's how I feel. Meanwhile, the unicorns over there are like, dude, you're not even looking at me. You're not even looking for me. You're not telling them what I look like or what I'm made of or how I live. You're not. What are you doing? And I'm like, I got it, man. I'm just going to use my feelings and some book, right? But God is not exempt from scrutiny, just like anything else in the world. He's not some special little thing that we can disregard evidence for. If you're going to say something exists, like I think octopus exists, you go to find the evidence for the octopus. God is not some magical thing we can dismiss and say, oh, we don't need to actually give evidence. We still need to know what it is. Just like I would need to tell you what a unicorn is, where it is, maybe where you can find it, how I know there is one.
I agree that we shouldn't divorce reason from our faith, but also...
But isn't that what you do?
No, it's not.
No?
I think, honestly, the mission of, our lives here on Earth is that we might not have, the most tangible evidence. Our mission is to get to know and, find the reasons for believing. And even though,
That's key right there, because what you just said is really important. What religion has done throughout time, which is why it's a failed science, is it starts with the conclusion and then tries to find evidence. Whereas science starts with the evidence and then makes conclusions based off that evidence, which is the correct way to go, which is why science works.
presuppositionalism is a school in some schools of religion. I don't think that it works precisely because of that, because it starts with a conclusion and then tries to gather evidence for it. I don't think that that's necessarily how we should investigate.
But you believe in God, and you believe in Jesus, and you're trying to find reasons to substantiate that, when you should be looking for those reasons first and not making a conclusion that he exists until you have those reasons.
I think we should draw from both things that do support the evidence for God and things that might be conflicting evidence, and then evaluate it.
Because it's also not that we're just like investigating a claim, like we are coming to know a person. So it's a reality.
A person? What do you mean?
It's a reality. We're coming to know the person of Jesus Christ through prayer and through Scripture. It's not just like something that you learn or you study or something that you discover. It's like,
well, isn't praying just talking to yourself?
No.
Why would any reasonable person talk to themselves and use a label of praying on it? What's the purpose?
Because I'm not talking to myself.
But how do you know that? How can you show that?
Because I have things that come to me from outside of
Isn't that your interpretation of your experiences?
That is my experience.
Right.
Someone could say that that's wrong.
Well, that's your interpretation of your experience. You can't show it in a scientific fashion, right?
Yeah, but there are things.
So then we're back to trying to show the unbeliever that the praying actually does anything other than just.
Do you believe that there's anything beyond science?
Beyond what?
Do you think there's anything beyond our five senses that we can measure?
Well, we have more than five senses. I mean.
What are other senses?
Sense of balance, sense of direction. I mean, we have more senses.
So beyond what is material, do you believe that anything exists?
Beyond material, what do we have besides the material world?
Consciousness, perhaps.
Consciousness is a product of a working brain, which is material.
Do you think you could measure consciousness quantifiably?
Once what?
Can you measure consciousness quantifiably, scientifically? Can you measure consciousness?
I'm not sure why you would ask that.
Because it's clearly something that
That's
exists.
That's key to what we're talking about.
If consciousness is something that exists and we can't measure it scientifically, then how do you know it's there?
Well, we are conscious beings.
Exactly. So we're experiencing something that we can't necessarily.
We might not know. That's another answer. If we don't know how it fully works, we would come up with the answer. I don't know. But the answer, just because we don't know something, doesn't mean we should believe something else.
Do you think we should end with the I don't know, or do you think we should investigate?
No, we should investigate, but only when we have something to investigate. Right?
So
we're continuously trying to learn about how the brain works. We haven't fully backwards engineered it. We're like 10, 15 years away from doing that. So we have a ways to go before we can fully comprehend the brain.
Well, some disciplines, like psychology, right, are based in subjective answers. Like the final answer to an idea of like what is happiness, that's not going to have a quantifiable definition at the end of the day, because that is person to person, like that varies. And in a discipline like psychology, which I would assume that you would.
Okay, what's the point to that though?
The point to that is that there is such a thing as a subjective experience, and that can be used as scientific knowledge.
Well, no, not of a being that's supposed to exist. Like we don't even know what a God is, but you're trying to say that you can know it just by looking inside yourself.
Because you're trying to quantify God as something that can be reasonable.
Why shouldn't it be able? Why shouldn't that be expected?
Because if God doesn't exist within the world of scientific reason,
how do you know it doesn't?
Here's the thing: if God,
do we know of anything that doesn't exist inside the material world?
Not necessarily.
Then why should we think a God does?
If God exists in the way that we believe, then He must have created the world. Right?
But we have no reason to think that. Why should we care?
How did the world come to be?
We don't have to know that. We can stardust, stars exploding.
Stars exploding.
Yeah, sure.
At the beginning, if we take that theory to its logical beginning, right? That means at one point there was nothing.
No, that just means that we don't know a whole lot about quantum mechanics, which we're still learning.
Do you believe that the past is infinite? Do you believe that there wasn't a start to time?
Well, I think present, past, and future are happening at the same moment, just different frequencies. It really depends on how you look at it. I really don't know. We don't know the answers to these things, and we don't have to, because you can't use the fallacy, the fallacy of ignorance, and say just because we don't know something, therefore, let's give this God thing a chance because we don't know other things. That's not a way to build your case. You have to actually have a reason to care about looking for a God. I don't see any gods anywhere. My life every day, I don't see any gods. Jesus is nowhere. I see a bunch of kooks walking around trying to convince me that there's Jesus and stuff, but there's no reason to believe in them. Therefore, I don't give it the time of day, right? But you guys feel that there is.
What about like modern day miracles that other people have experienced?
There's no such thing as a miracle. There's no such thing as a miracle. People can experience things. They can misinterpret things and think it's a miracle. But in order to say there's a miracle, you have to know that miracles are real and have evidence for them.
What about apparitions? Like,
Those are just stories, movies, books. They're not real.
This feels kind of like a heads I win, tails you lose type thing, because it's like, okay, if this thing exists, show me the evidence, and then if someone says, I've experienced some evidence, and then you're like, well, that's not real evidence.
Well, you have to give. It has to be scientific. It has to be testable. That's the difference between you think, well, I read the story and it kind of sways me this way. That's not scientific evidence. You have to have something testable.
That's the case if we're talking about a natural law, for example.
Or a being.
But we're hypothesizing about a person, an agent, right? And if we're talking about an agent, then an agent is one that has the ability to choose. And so you can't quite as easily.
So we should be able to know how what it's made of, where it lives, and how we know those things, right?
But why? If we believe that God is outside of time and outside of
Why
our
would you think that?
world,
Why would you think that?
Because if he wasn't, then he wouldn't be God.
and then why
It
would
wouldn't
he
be
have
that-
to
it
be
wouldn't be that
scientific?
great.
How do you know he didn't just program this universe and he's just a programmer?
If he's a programmer, then he still exists outside of this universe.
Well, outside, no,
So
he's
why
probably,
would we have to
he could be
measure
in the universe, it's just we're inside the universe as well, and we're a program. Right? But if we don't know of anything that's outside of time, then we shouldn't believe that God is outside of time. It just goes to show that you're trying to say, well, if it's not in time, if they create everything, it must be outside of time. Well, we don't quite know that because we don't fully understand how the universe works. We don't understand quantum mechanics. We have a lot to learn.
if he
So-
created the universe, then he had to have been there before the universe, because you can't create something.
All right, then who created God?
He's always existed.
Well, there you go. Why can't I say the universe existed in some form or another? Why does it take a God to create it? What if the universe just was something else before?
Maybe I'm oversimplifying.
I mean, quantum mechanics, we don't know a lot about it. Maybe there's stuff we're still going to learn about it that tells us how matter came to the universe, how we created something out of when nothing was there, perhaps, quote unquote. Like, we don't know. So why say there was a God if we just don't know? Should we just say we don't know how everything came to be and go at it? Wouldn't that be more honest?
Well, I think that we don't know anything for certain, and that's why we say that we have faith. But what I think I should ask is, why does this hypothesis about the source of the universe, what invalidates it in the face of other hypotheses?
Well, there's no evidence to suggest that there is a God, so that's why.
I think there is evidence, but it's just evidence.
But we don't know what it
I
is.
think is valid.
We don't even know what a God is. It's like me trying to tell you that there's a blah. Well, what's a blah? I don't know. I didn't define it. So what am I talking
Well, I
about?
think the evidence that we have tells us the nature of God if he exists.
No, I don't think so. I think you may think it does, but I think scientifically you would be able to show it. But if you did, you'd be winning prizes.
We do find the exact cause of the universe, scientifically, which we should strive to do. Right? Just because you find that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a God.
No, I'm not saying there isn't, but
Right.
there should be no reason to give the idea of a God any serious consideration.
There might not be.
Then nobody should believe in any religion at all.
But
We
then
should
why
we should all be atheists. Everybody. We all born atheists.
But
We
what
should
do you
remain
think?
so.
What do you think moves us to believe that there's a God and that He knows us?
Ignorance and gullibility. I think everyone who believes in a God in an afterlife is, in some form or another, ignorant and gullible in at least that area of their life. And I think if you don't learn how to use logic and reasoning correctly, it could spill over to other areas of your life too. So I think it's very important to know the truth and come at the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is a degree to which a statement corresponds with reality. And reality is that which is directly perceived or indirectly ascertained via the proper use of reason. So by purging ourselves of our sacred beliefs that we have no foundation for, we will improve our lives in every way, because then we'll know how to use logic correctly.
But
I don't think anyone...
How would my life improve if I
By
didn't
making better decisions, by learning that the truth is more important than fiction.
Would that make me happier?
Doesn't matter whether it makes you happy or not. What matters is the truth. You shouldn't believe in something because it makes you happy. You should believe in something because it shows you the truth. If you find that your life is unhappy, then that just means you need to see a therapist.
That is true. That is what the church teaches.
Yeah.
Right? We believe in truth as a foremost. So yeah, you're right. Our feelings don't matter.
They don't, right? That's a therapist and stuff for medication.
I think
Pot.
I think if you do a deep dive into history, you'll find that a lot of people, within the Catholic Church, for example, are very intelligent people.
I'm sure there are lots of intelligent people.
And I think they gave a lot of thought into the faith. Why do we believe?
Well, some people are very good at compartmentalizing. A lot of people who are into science, very knowledgeable, but then they give up logic and reason because they have a religion and they don't apply it in that area.
I think that's true. Have you read from the church fathers? Like, is that a conclusion you determine?
What do you mean?
From what they wrote about how the church doesn't teach that logic and reason are separate from a belief in God.
Well, if logic taken to its obvious extension leads everyone to be an atheist.
Perhaps. I mean,
An atheist
that might
or
be,
an
but
agnostic.
that's not a conclusion that the church has brought upon through arguments of logic and reason. Which honestly, like, I'm not super well versed in, but I'm sure I know Aquinas writes about it. For certain, Augustine does.
Okay.
If you want to know more about these arguments, I really encourage you to talk to our pastor, Father David.
I'm pretty well versed on.
Well, what I mean is just what they wrote about it, or because I don't have the resources to show that to you, but he might.
I know that we do have like a lot of those books in our library.
In our student center.
And that doesn't mean by talking to them that they're going to try to convert you or you're going to try to convert them. It's just like we ourselves are students. We're in this organization and we're still learning. Our pastors and our campus ministers are still
I want to tell you that
they know more than us. So
I know. I get that a lot.
You're a very smart guy.
I get that a lot. A lot of people who try to refer others to pastors and stuff thinking they know more, and they really don't. They may know more about you than you do about your religion. In that sense, you think that they'll have the answer, but when it comes to questions like this, they don't really.
I'm not saying that they'll have the answers. I'm just saying that they have more experience and they have studied the religion and theology and the history of the church more, so they might have more an understanding of what happened and what our beliefs are and why we believe them, not necessarily the answers to what happened or how it happened.
Regardless, we love talking to people.
Okay.
We love you. Can I have your name,
You don't know
please?
me, so it's a little awkward and weird.
I don't need to know you.
Well, then that's just weird.
And,
To answer your question, everyone is either a theist or an atheist 100% of the time. Agnosticism is just a modifier added to either one. Agnosticism means something is unknown or knowable. It can pertain to anything. In this instance, it'll pertain to a God. So you can actually be a theist agnostic, think that God is unknowable, but you still believe. Or you can be an atheist agnostic, and you think it's unknown, and therefore you're an atheist. So it's not a third option. It's just a modifier.
Didn't you say that the ultimate end, the logical end is that the logical end is we don't know.
Right now we don't know how everything came to be. We're still learning, and I think that's the beauty of the world, to learn. And I think it's great to not know and to admit to not know, because I think it's honest. I think you're being honest. I think when you believe in stuff that doesn't show to exist, you're not being honest. You're not going about life correctly, and you kind of take yourself away from the beauty of reality.
I think actually, at least in my own faith experience, I've tapped more into the beauty of reality.
Well, if you did, you wouldn't have imaginary friends.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't have any.
But that doesn't mean you're right.
No, but the default position is not to have any until some show to exist.
But
right?
you can't say that if we fully tapped into the beauty of reality, we wouldn't have imaginary.
That is correct. You would not. If you use logic correctly and you had an intimate relationship with reality, you would not have imaginary friends. You would not believe in a God. You would not believe in Jesus. You would not believe in apparitions or spirits or souls. None of it. You would realize that these things are just made up stuff we pulled out of our butt long ago.
Well, if you'd like to write anything here, then in the worst case, you just have a bunch of delusional college students thinking very loving thoughts about you.
Okay. Nothing. Well, good talking to you guys, though.
Nice talking to you, too.
What's your name?
Ted.
Ted, nice to meet you.
Take care, guys. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that. That was quite a lot today. I guess I'll make 2 videos out of that, or something. Maybe I'll just make out 1 video, I don't know. I know some of you are going to be against me because I argued for abortion, but, whatever. That's my position. You don't like it. I had some guy in there say, I'm removing my sub because of how you feel in abortion. Hey, buddy. What else? I love Indian women. Alright, so, So what do we handle? We handled the pro-choice, the pro-life, and then some other dude, some other religion, and then the Catholic people, kids. And they always say that. They're always like, well, you should talk to a pastor because he's going to know more, and blah, 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 blah. They always say that. Like all the time. They always think their pastor is going to be able to have the answers when they're just as clueless as these guys. Sure, the pastors may have had more arguments and therefore can BS you more, but they're not going to have anything of any consequence. Debated them all you people out there trying to say that I don't debate the hard people, I debate everybody. It's just that you think there's hard people out there and there's not. They're all easy. Easy, yes? Easy. So that's it. Right down here a little bit. I'll come back. Yeah. Listen, guys, I really mean it. That I've been trying to do some other videos, and I know some of them kind of sucked. I'm trying to do a new format. There are people out there who talk about other things that are more into men's rights and stuff like that, and there's people in their kids in their 20s who do more progressive channels and have almost 1 million, followers. I wouldn't mind getting to 100,000 to 200,000 people. I want to improve my channel. I have a crappy webcam, but a nice microphone. I'm still learning how to make my sound great, but you guys can give some advice on what I should concentrate on. Great. Trying to find motivation. I'm definitely doing more than I did before because I've gone on my way and learned some OBS and stuff. So yeah. Anybody who wants to send me a nice camera, I appreciate it. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll upload it today. Peace.